Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Jon Myer Podcast. Today, we're actually talking with Mike Noonen, who's the CEO of Sway Photonics. And you know what? This is going to be a very interesting topic and conversation happening. Mike, thanks so much for joining me.
John, it's a pleasure, and thank you for taking the time.
Okay, Mike, first of all, before we actually get to what Swave is and what you guys are doing and the awesome stuff, how about you give the audience a little backstory on yourself?
Happy to do so. I've been in the semiconductor business for most of my career, which goes back to maybe the early days of semiconductors, and behind me are some of the projects I worked on. I went not to actual scale though, so I don't go back that far. But I started off actually in Colorado with a company, NCR, back when every computer company had its own semiconductor division. And over the years, had the opportunity to work for companies like Cisco Systems, National Semiconductor. We're part of the team that spun NXP out of Philips and took it public, as well as an executive with Global Foundries. And the past 10 years or so, I've been working with the most interesting and innovative semiconductor startups. And the reason for that is I launched the first incubator for semiconductor startups called Silicon Catalyst, and that's put me on the exciting journey that's led me to the Swave team, and delighted to tell you more about what Swave is doing.
Well, Mike, tell us, what is Swave? What are you guys doing?
Yeah, so Swave is a fabless semiconductor company that's set out to basically make holography, what we've been seeing in the movies, for a better part of 50 plus years, make that a reality. And everyone's familiar with holography, from iconic Princess Leia from Star Wars to Tony Stark and and Iron Man, and all sorts of numerous examples. But everything that we've seen in the movies has been just that, computer generated. And what we're looking to do is actually bring the first display technology that can essentially make what we've been seeing in the movies come to life, from an augmented reality standpoint to virtual reality, and really make the most of this new era of computing, spatial computing, which really requires and is meant to bring the third dimension to how we interact with the real and virtual worlds.
Mike, how are you guys able to do this, or how are you doing this? Because I remember, obviously, you said Princess Leia, and I'm like, oh my God, you just brought back some memories. And we've been trying to do this for decades now. And here we are, we're in 2024, yet we haven't fully accomplished that. And everybody thought this was going to be reality probably about 20, 30 years ago.
Oh, indeed. In fact, the person who discovered or invented holography, a gentleman named Dennis Gabor, back in 1947, came up with it. And so it's been a better part of three quarters of a century that we've been on this journey. And the fundamentals of holography are well known. Basically, we're using light waves to interact with one another, and you can create essentially a three-dimensional image. And that part is well understood. But to do it, really correctly and really properly, you need, pixels that are on the order of half the wavelength of light. And that's turned out to be very challenging, because, all of the existing display technologies, and whether that be, LCD, LCOS, micro LED, DLP, state of the art's around 2 micron, which is an order of magnitude too large. And up till now, there hasn't been a path forward, to scale at all, to the dimensions needed, much less do it economically and at scale. And based upon research that started almost 15 years ago at IMEC in Belgium, and IMEC is a pretty well-renowned research institute, working on really all sorts of advances when it comes to semiconductor technology. They started looking at how to solve this problem and came up with a very clever idea, what I refer to as the Reese's peanut butter cup of technologies, in using a memory technology as a photonic element. And that combination, and we can get into the details there, but that combination really enabled this breakthrough to have these tiny nanopixels, smaller than wavelength of light, but small enough to be able to shape and steer light, so that we can do your true holography, when coupled with the other piece of the puzzle, the diffractive photonics.
Mike, talk to me a little bit more about how Swave is doing this. I mean, like, here's what I envision, right? We all know Google glasses and the Apple stuff that's coming out, and people wearing them and being able to kind of do some of this interaction and the accomplishments that we've already had to date. But what you're talking about is going smaller and more compact in order to make this a reality.
Precisely. And you described it so well, and so let me kind of fill in a bit of the space in between these tiny pixels. And all of the solutions we've had previously really have relied upon these legacy display technologies, which were never envisioned or much less designed to be something that could be not only lightweight enough and low power enough that you could wear them all day, but also didn't behave the way the human vision system expects things to behave. And if you've worn a pair of gaming goggles for virtual reality, one of the phenomena is that people experience is about 15 to 20 minutes you start to feel nauseous and maybe even a little bit seasick. And the reason for that is the images aren't behaving in the way that millions of years of evolution have taught us the way things behave in the real world. Holography solves that by having a three-dimensional image that essentially behaves the way that we expect, and has things in focus when they're supposed to be in focus and not when they're not supposed to be in focus. So back to these tiny pixels and what Swayze did based upon this pioneering work at IMEC was figure out how to use something called phase change material as a pixel. And actually, for those of your viewers of this podcast who remember rewritable DVDs, this is what made rewritable DVDs rewritable. So there was a laser in the DVD player that basically activated or essentially heated up this phase change material, so it would change from one phase, crystalline, to another phase, amorphous, and that would represent a one or a zero to store data. Well, we're using that as a pixel. And because of the tiny nature of these nanopixels, it's small enough to steer light. But the really cool part, if that wasn't cool enough, we're doing this on top of standard regular semiconductor technology, CMOS technology actually. So we get the best of both worlds. This photonics breakthrough with this phase change material, but built upon something that is very scalable, very inexpensive, and widely available, which is also quite a departure from other display technologies, which really have required bespoke and custom and very hard to scale manufacturing processes. So Swave's approach here, using this phase change material breakthrough, is allowing us to get to these tiny pixels, but do it with an economies of scale that allow us to grow rapidly, and also not only have this increase in performance in solving all these issues, but doing it at a much lower cost basis.
Mike, it sounds like you're rewriting. Yes, I have to use the CD because I remember rewriting a lot of the CDs and recording it, but you're also using existing technology on top of that stuff that's already out there. It's proven, so you don't really have to reinvent the wheel in
That's
most
right.
aspects.
That's exactly right. And we're using the entire periodic table of elements, to innovate in. And in this case, this is something that's been widely available and also, fab friendly, because it's also used as an embedded memory, for MCUs, for instance. But here, Swave is really doing some pioneering work, to use this as a photonic element, for this exciting application of holography for spatial computing and all of the augmented reality potentials and really opportunity that we're looking to fulfill now.
Mike, you're talking about some of the potentials, but what are the potentials or use cases for this technology?
So this is where it gets to be real fun, and so the ability to basically take something like a pair of glasses, which arguably already is an augmented reality wearable, because we're augmenting my terrible vision so that I can see near and far, but add on top of that other capabilities. And so imagine, if you will, all of the information that you might look at your smartphone or your smartwatch, being able to be displayed on your glasses, and do it in a way that really has reality first, but adding information just when you need it, where you need it, and something as straightforward as personal navigation, being able to tell you where to turn, and also where you might encounter some things that you wouldn't normally have if you were just looking at your smartphone, or God forbid a paper map. So just that simple example of personal navigation really shows the power of this. But really, that's just the beginning. The whole concept of digital twin, for instance. We've put together a series of videos that show where this technology can be applied, and and consider for instance a medical technician, an ambulance driver being able to superimpose an X-ray on a patient's arm so that they know exactly what sort of treatments to apply, and do it in a way that's real time, but also takes in the real world, the patient, and now this augmented reality, in this case an X-ray, or for example, being able to identify as you're walking along a trail, poisonous plant. Well, again, rather than try to figure out which app to use and do and take a picture and so forth, making all of that really at your fingertips, or really right in front of your eyes, bringing that to life. And there's so many applications like that that we think are going to add additional value to really how we work, live, and play.
Mike, when you were talking about the ambulance and superposing an X-ray, there's a series, and I won't call out the name, obviously. It's a Chicago series that's out there, and they're talking about Chicago Med. All right, I got to call out the name, and they did this within an actual room for them to work on their patients, and it's a surgery room, and they're talking to the AI, and they're superimposing all this graphics onto them, and where the actual veins, the arteries, everything is, so that they could perform the surgery. You just made that to me a reality, that all the doctors will have that immediately available. They're all wearing these glasses, these features, or even seeing it within the room itself, projecting down onto it so that they can perform, life-saving surgery with minimal error or anything.
That's exactly right. And having this breakthrough of these tiny pixels really is going to enable what has been limited, if it was even possible at all. It's been limited to very select and very expensive installations, with a lot of hardware setup, and bringing that to where it has the most impact and utility, everyday life. What we see is this is going to start to a whole new really era of computing. This era of spatial computing, and augmented by all sorts of AI agents, and really start to give people superpowers, and be able to do it in a way that isn't intrusive, but just becomes a natural extension, and one more skill to deploy. But do it in a way that isn't either obnoxious or socially isolating, or at the very least, doesn't do the job that you're supposed to do. And that's really the promise of what we've been working on, really building upon all of the smart people who've been working in this area previously, but up till now have been handicapped or really held back because the display technology wasn't up to the job.
When you say the display technology wasn't up to the job, are you talking because it was too bulky? It didn't handle some of the features? And I know the other one that you mentioned with the VR, you feel that sickness, right? It's like motion sickness within it. And those are some of the problems on why you couldn't wear it so long or for a prolonged time.
Precisely. And once you realize that it's easier to figure out a solution to accommodate to how our human vision system works, and how the brain operates, that becomes really enabling, and that really is table stakes. But just to add one more additional complexity and really hurdle that this way, when we call our platform the holographic extended reality, HXR for short. One of the additional things that we basically enable is the fact that by being able to have this computational capability of putting an image where it belongs in the 3D world, we're prescription glass compatible. And given the fact that most people wear glasses because of the prescription, that's a pretty important aspect. But it also it really shows the ability and the importance of being able to put something in focus where it belongs. And again, the example technologies that you listed aren't capable of that, and it ends up adding to the problem, because up till now it's been solved by either having multiple displays at different depths of focus, or even having the display and lenses on motors, which again is it's such a going backwards when it comes to having something lightweight, low cost, bulky, not geeky, and something that people would want to wear every day.
Mike, you talked about being prescription glass compatible, and one of the things that I'm thinking about, and that's actually very key, is because what is it? Probably about half the population wears glasses or contacts, right? And you have these glasses, and you're farsighted, you can't see near, but you have this display on you. How does it, if you're doing it in front versus behind it, to actually see it, to get the clarity of it? That's actually key to for these people to be able to visualize and utilize what you've provided.
Oh, you're exactly right, and it really starts from just the customer experience of getting glasses made, and if you have to go to another vendor out beyond your optometrist, first those are hurdles no one wants to deal with. But
Yep.
being able to to fit with how people buy glasses today and get them provisioned, and if you want to have scratch resistance or transition lenses, but what if it was just also just a checkoff item? You want them to be smart, and that's the direction that we're going, and we think our technology and the partners we're working with basically will make that happen.
Mike, you're talking about some of the partners that you're working with. How can one get their hands on this technology? How can they utilize it? How can they actually put it into action?
Well, so we're working, feverishly to, to get this, into the hands of our customers, and then, as soon as possible, into the hands of both, consumer and commercial customers, and do it, really over, the next year, and also at, various industry events, such as CES and some of the other, major events. So, we'll be, demonstrating, this technology in various stages, with the expectation that well, later on in 2025 and definitely by early 2026, they'll start to be products on the market for both commercial as well as consumer customers that have our enabling HXR holographic technology.
Oh man, I thought this was going to be in my Christmas stocking already for this year.
Well,
I guess I've got to wait.
there's always early adopters, so and we're always looking for informed beta testers, and so we'll definitely keep you on that list. But there's so many different directions that this can go. Not just AR smart glasses, but can you imagine being able to augment your sports experience with AR smarts swim goggles, or being able to have what all the information you need while you're doing a century ride. And so, there's all going to be all sorts of, really, wide variety of end applications, and that's just, on the consumer and the fun side. But, there's almost, 3 billion, people around the world who don't work at a desk, and they've really been left out of to a great degree the impact that computing and connectivity have had on how they do their job. And so everything from logistics to hospitality workers to people working on the manufacturing floor, or construction workers now can have some additional basically help, high tech help, when it comes to doing their job, and something that someone sitting at the desk, or who have the luxury of having a laptop have enjoyed. So there's going to be a wide variety of really vertically oriented applications, and that's going to be just as big and as exciting as the consumer applications.
Mike, I think this is limitless, because if you think about it and all the possibilities where you can use it, you mentioned the construction workers, workers that are blue collar, that are not behind the desk. I know you mentioned Tony Stark, Iron Man, and I have to kind of touch on that. I'm a huge Marvel person. And in the one where Captain America, the Winter Soldier, Fury is driving down the street, and he's talking to the car and projecting literally everything onto the screen, onto the windshield of what's happening, communication, driving, get me at, like, literally the windshield itself has become his secondary lens, right? And be
That's
able
right.
to enhance his driving experience.
That's right. Well, John, that's such a perfect example, and really any place where you have glass has the potential to be an intelligent display, and that vision of the future. First, it's a great roadmap for companies like ours, where to a certain degree we don't need to invent the future. We already know what it's going to be. what we needed to do was invent the technology that was going to really bring it to life and do it in a way that actually can be deployed. Whether it's at a future a Best Buy or a wide variety of other ways that technology gets into the hands of users. But this is where the fun begins, because once you start to not only build on what's already been envisioned, like the great example you gave, but now the human imagination just starts to get going. And we're seeing so many both end applications as well as ways that truly we can bring the real and virtual worlds together in an everyday manner, but do extraordinary things that weren't possible before.
Mike, before I wrap things up, and I know we talked about really where you're going to be and what's next, what's happening, obviously 2025 CES show. If anybody else is going to be at the CES show, Mike's going to be there with his company. He's going to be showing all kinds of cool things about Swave and what's happening. But really, I guess the tough question I have for you, rather than saying what's next, right? Because I already can see some of the things that you're working on. But if I want to get involved, if I want to reach out to you and be one of those early adopters, how can we?
Well, first, feel free to to come visit our website, and that's swave .io, swave.io, and it's a great way to keep up to date and also ask questions on if you're a developer or looking to build on the technologies that what we're bringing to market. We're very eager and happy to engage, as well as there's quite a few organizations around the world that what really I think are great ways to get involved with the technology, but more importantly the applications, and whether that's IEEE or Society for Information Display and so forth. And I think that's just going to grow with interest, because there really is nothing more exciting than bringing what we've been expecting for years to come to life. And that's the great part of being able to be in this business, and why we're so grateful to have this opportunity to tell a little bit of our story with you here today, Jon.
Mike, I know I said I got to wrap things up, but I just literally thought of this. Obviously, you and I were talking beforehand, and my kids are in school. I just think of the educational aspect, the educational boundaries that are going to open up for all the kids, not only in K through 12. I think it's just going to be great for them to get their hands early on to this and learn. Teachers that are not there, they're able to see things visually rather than trying to explain them. They literally can see it right in front of their eyes, and almost as if they're touching it. I mean, it's going to unlock so many doors.
Jon, you're so glad you brought that up. And the way people learn, and what we've learned from experts who study this, 75 to 80% of learning is done visually. And if you can enhance that in a way that that still has reality first, but again augmenting either with information that you wouldn't be able to to gain the insight if it wasn't superimposed, or you have to go not in real time and look it up. And so that's one aspect of making how we learn even more effective and more efficient. But the other part about it is really making this much more inclusive, as so many people got left behind as what we brought technology to education. Not everybody has the same capabilities, or enjoys the same level of support. That's both students as well as teachers. And by being able to bring something that can be as ubiquitous as glasses, as one way of adding and augmenting how we learn, we think that's going to be pretty impactful, and again be able to to raise or really level the playing field for everyone involved.
Mike, I can't wait to get my hands on some of this and to test it out and play around with it. I'm hoping to be at CES this year. You and I will have to get together. I'll play a little bit, do a little video and content. Mike, thank you so much for joining me. This has been awesome.
My pleasure. So enjoyed the insightful discussion, and look forward to talking again soon.
Yes, definitely. Well, everybody, this has been Mike Noonen, CEO of Sway Photonics. This has been the Jon Myer Podcast. Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, and notify, because guess what? We're out of here.